Hi everybody, welcome back to Startup X. This is lecture 8, C.F.O, competition, fundraising, and outro. When it comes to competition, rule number 1 is you don't want to compete. What that means is you don't want to go after a big market that's populated with many competitors. What you want to do is go after a small market that's served by nobody or very few and try to monopolize that, take this over by finding your niche, and then you can scale from there. Amazon did that with textbooks. Facebook did that with Harvard. You can go take over the world after you take over a smaller world and scale from there. Is it better as long as this small market is growing and adoption is fast? That's huge because you can go and pick up all that market share really quickly and be on your way to a monopoly, which is essentially what every business tries to be. The components of a monopoly are proprietary technology, network effects, more users, the better experience or product, economies of scaling. The more you produce, cheaper price per unit, and a recognizable brand. Is it better to be, where's the real advantage? The first mover advantage, late mover advantage? Is it best to be the first one in the market, like Apple does many times with iPods, iPads, gobble up all the market share, build a big lead? Or is it better to be late, right? Hit that last boom and ride that last wave longer. I don't know if you really get a choice. I don't think both of them obviously have crazy advantages, but I don't really think you have a choice as long as it really won't matter if you stop innovating. This psychological component of competition that is inherently wrong is it gets people wrapped up in the notion of winning as opposed to getting better, which is really what's important. Okay guys, fundraising. Fundraising is a game of outliers. It's a completely extreme sport. Statistically, entrepreneurship and startups have a very low percentage of success. Then you throw fundraising statistics on top of it, and you realize that if you don't make money, you better raise money, because 5% of all startups that actually qualify to get money get it. Only 5%. 1/3 of 1% of startups that get money ever make VC money. What that means is $100 million in revenue annually. Why do you need to make $100 million in revenue annually for an investor to be interested in you as opposed to just having a $10 million business? Because it's a game of outliers. All their other we're looking for a unicorn to basically wash all the other losses, which are 9 out of 10. That's why it's a game of outliers. The really, really, really extreme startups are also the extreme successes. Why this 5%? Unfortunately, raising money is still who you know, not what you know. It's kind of a boys' club. The people that get VC money have either raised seed already raised this, or it's with a founder that the investor has worked in the past, typically through an exit. So because it's a extreme business, the really good VCs understand that there are sometimes a lot of flaws with one of these extreme businesses, so they invest in strength over lack of flaws. Because through strengths you can find that X factor that you need to have in order to get to this for the VCs to become successful. The X factor is just that other thing that makes the startup special. You could be an awesome founder, have a great team, have a great product, have customers, have traction, have growth, but you'll fizzle out at some point. It's an extremely competitive global business environment. So you need, this is the key. Airbnb, Uber, major X factors exist within those companies from the beginning. Investors are driven by dual fears. The fear of missing out on the next Google, to have major FOMO syndrome, and the fear of losing money on something that in retrospect looks absolutely idiotic and stupid. So they don't want to look stupid, but the fear of missing out on the next Google has to be greater than the fear of looking stupid. If you can get this Inception style, like implanted into their brain, you're halfway there. So what's the best way to pitch an investor to raise money? To raise seed money, you should use the onion theory of risk, which essentially says you raise capital to peel away layers of risk. Every startup has many layers of risk that come with it. Everything from team to founders getting along, to the product, to getting customers, to the launch being successful. And as you achieve your milestones, you can justify more capital. That's the best way to pitch the onion, peeling away the layers of risk as you hit each milestone, and you can justify more capital, is way better than telling an investor, I need money for an office, I need money for employees, I need to buy desks, I need to buy computers. Remember, your time is money, really valuable. So when you go in with your investors, make sure you're really prepared. Give them an executive summary, make sure you have your pitch deck, have a prototype, users, growth. Funding takes traction. The more things you bring to the table, the more excited investors will get about your startup. They love hearing repeat paying customers for investors. That's like an alarm that goes off and makes you want to invest in the company. Insist on getting clean terms and don't get caught up on the valuation of your company, because intermediate valuations don't matter much. Raising money is tricky. It's not a game where whoever raises the most wins. You gotta raise just an adequate amount of money, as opposed to raising a lot and giving a lot of equity and getting diluted in the later rounds. That could be very disastrous for you and the investors, because you won't be motivated to work on a company that you don't own that much anymore. Raising money is expensive. You got to make sure you get something in return for it. Raise money from somebody that can either has domain expertise in what you're doing, or has the connections and can make introductions to either business development deals or Series A investors. You shouldn't try to raise money when your company isn't in good enough shape to raise money, because it's not good for your reputation and it's a complete waste of time. It won't work. And try to keep in mind that raising money is actually not a startup milestone. It's not considered a milestone. It's actually going to be a lot easier than building a company, hiring engineers, getting users, getting traction, growing that, scaling. Those things are going to be a lot easier than convincing somebody to give your idea and your startup, which is pretty awesome, some money. The 7 startup milestones are: prove your concept, complete your design specifications, build your prototype, ship a beta, ship the real thing, achieve break even, and finance your business. Try to bootstrap your business as long as possible. Focus on building your business as opposed to building your pitch, if that makes sense. Some startups don't make a lot of money. They actually lose a lot of money. On paper, look horrible, but the valuation from the startup comes from growth rate and the ability for the startup to turn it on and make a lot of money in the future. And for tech and startups, that happens to be the case a lot. You burn a lot of cash and get a lot of users and then flip the switch and make money through a revenue source. And that's pretty much it, everybody. As far as startups goes, it's extremely hard to teach. I've taught you as much as I could, but a startup is really something that you can only learn from doing. That's why colleges can't teach it. You can't do it in college because if you did it in college, it takes over your life. And if it became successful, you would never go back. So what should you do during your time in college? Just learn about powerful things. Don't go to like entrepreneurship school or the major of how to be an entrepreneur or how to be a business person. Like I said, startups in itself is a different animal altogether. What you should do is just follow your own intellectual curiosity. Be brave enough to follow the things that interest you. Go out of your way to hang around smart, interesting people. Learn about different things. Practice noticing problems. There's plenty of them around. Look for inefficiencies. And work on projects that really interest you. At some point, ideas will emerge, but only start a startup if you really feel compelled about a problem, and that by starting your startup is the best way to solve that problem. That's it.